Hello students, today we are going to take a new topic which is the neutrality of money. Neutrality of money is one of the pillars of classical economics and is the basis of classical aggregate supply curve which has a vertical shape. The neutrality of money is an idea which states that money is neutral in the sense that it does not affect the level of output or the level of employment. So it is neutral, its role is neutral in the economy, or it has no real role in the economy. This is the idea of neutrality of money. And so what does money do? According to this theory, money only affects nominal variables like the price level or the nominal rate of interest. It does not affect the real variables like level of output or employment. This is essentially the idea of neutrality of money. So neutrality of money does not mean money is not required in the economy or it is unimportant in the economy. It is important because it fulfills the role of medium of exchange. But it will not help you to have any real effect on the economy. Real effect means uh, increasing the level of output, employment, such other things. Okay, nominal variables like money supply, nominal variables like price level can be influenced, but price level is not something that really matters, because what matters is the quantity of output that can be produced. So we'll have one diagram which explains the neutrality of money. Okay, so here we have the diagram for neutrality of money. You can see here there are two quadrants to the diagram. The first quadrant has labor on the x-axis and real wages on the y-axis. It's not actually real wages, sorry, it is money wages. It is money wages. So money wages on the y-axis, and in the second quadrant we have labor on the x-axis and quantity of output on the y-axis. So this first quadrant, you might be very familiar with this first quadrant. This is our neoclassical labor market. Neoclassical labor market in the sense of the shape of the labor supply and demand curves. But in functional forms, in neoclassical market, we know that labor demand and labor supplies are functions of real wages. But here, for ease of analysis, we have represented money wages on the y-axis. It can also be represented by giving the real wages. And in the second quadrant, we have the production function, which states that output is a function of labor alone, because capital is fixed in the short run. You can see here capital here, but there is a bar on top of this K, which means that it is constant in the short run. Okay, so output varies only with regard to changes in the amount of labor that is employed. Okay, now let's go to the equilibrium in the labor market. DL and SL represents the initial demand for labor and supply of labor. And they intersect at this point E, where the amount of labor employed is LE and the wage rate is WE. Okay, now by employing this LE amount of labor, it could be seen from the production function that the economy can produce QE level of output. Okay, so how did we arrive at this LE amount of labor? We arrived at the LE amount of labor from the labor market, neoclassical labor market. It is given by the intersection of DL and SL here, and this determines the quantity of labor employed, and this quantity of labor employed determines the level of output from the production function, and this is seen as QE. Now suppose there is an increase in the money supply. We are examining whether money supply has any effect on the real variables. So we take a situation where we are increasing the quantity of money, and when quantity of money is increased, what happens? The immediate effect is on the price level. When quantity of money increases, it increases the price level. And when price level increases, real wage falls, because real wage is W by P, that is money wage by price is the real wage. Now price is increasing, so what should happen? Real wage as a whole should fall because the denominator is increasing. So real wage falls, and we know that real wage is a cost from the part of the producers. Okay, it is something that goes out of their hands. They have to take from their pockets. And when such a thing falls, when a cost falls, they are likely to increase the quantity of labor employed, because labor is now cheap, and now that labor is cheap, they will in all likelihood increase the demand for labor. So that's what is shown here by the shift in the demand for labor curve from DL to DL1. Demand for labor curve shifts outwards from DL to DL1. And now what happens? The equilibrium is at this point here, the labor demanded should increase. Okay, you should see that the labor demanded should increase. But what has happened? Because price has increased, people are not ready to offer their labor services. When price have increased, the real wage has fallen. We know that the real wage as a whole has fallen when the price has risen. So when real wage falls, the income that laborers are getting from their work has fallen. So they prefer leisure in place of work. So what happens? The labor supply curve shifts to the left. We can see here labor supply curve has shifted from SL to SL1, and the new equilibrium should be here, where we have a less than full employment situation. But here, because the demand for labor is higher and prices have risen, what happens? Producers will be willing to increase the money wage rate from W to W1. Money wage rate gets increased from WE to W1, and the equilibrium will be re-established at the full employment level. Here DL1 and SL1 intersect at this point, and equilibrium will be re-established at the full employment level LE. At the LE level of employment, QE level of output will be produced. So again, what has happened? Despite there being an increase in the supply of money, neither the quantity of labor employed nor the level of output has changed. They have remained exactly at the same position as before the change in money supply. So what do we get from this? We get the idea that money is neutral. It is unable to influence any real economic variables, and this is the idea of neutrality of money. Now you might be in doubt why this supply of labor curve is passing through this point only. Why can't it be at this point or at this point? If the supply of labor curve is passing through this point and intersecting the demand for labor at this point, then what has happened? Money wage has not risen sufficiently, and so that they are getting the initial real wages. So what happens? Money wages will increase further, and what happens? Labor supply curve shifts, passes through this point. Okay, similarly, if this is the point, then there is underemployment. There is underemployment, and people will be competing among themselves, and money wage will fall. Similarly, here competition among producers to attract laborers will result in money wages rising. So that is why the labor supply curve is passing through this point and not to the right or left of this equilibrium point. Okay, so that is the idea of neutrality of money. Hope it is clear to you. Okay, let's see once again here. This is the point of equilibrium. Why the labor supply curve will not be here? If the labor supply curve happen to be here, then there is an excess demand for labor. There is an excess demand for labor, and this excess demand for labor drives the money wages up. Similarly, if the supply of labor curve is passing through this point, then there is an excess supply of labor, and this will drive down the wages to this level. Okay, so that's it. Thank you.